Hello and welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. This is number 39. Last week's was not number 39.
Yes,
and
mistakes on the prep.
as it turns out. But next week will be 40. We're excited about that. But more exciting, even perhaps, than our 40th podcast is the
I'd remove the perhaps from
is the Six Nations. I don't know about you guys, but I've got Six Nations fever. I've come down with a dose.
Yeah.
Very excited. I mean, it's a curious one because it's a World Cup year, so the stakes perhaps aren't as high as in other years.
Sure.
But in terms of just the sheer, it's conversely to that, it's also got all the top teams probably at their peak of their cycle.
Sure.
They're all, ironing out the little errors and fixing one or two things, but basically playing themselves into the best form that they can be in is the idea.
That's definitely the objective broadly for pretty much all the teams. All the teams in the competition still have a half focus on the World Cup at the end of the year. So it's going to be a curious kind of one from that point of view. Like within that, different objectives for each one's to accomplish. Like obviously Italy are not looking at setting their sights at the same height as the likes of Ireland, and England are a curiosity as well. Like they, after last year's debacle of a Six Nations, they'll be putting a lot of next game focus on trying to win some games at least. But yeah, no, it's all kind of skewed. Like our podcast is always kind of has always been World Cup centric as well. So it's like within that 4 year cycle, we're going to try and look at those teams week by week and break down how they're doing. Obviously, the results are going to be the most telling factor in that, though, because
for sure
you win, you gain momentum, you move on. You lose, you get knocked way back, and it becomes very, very hard to do anything in this tournament once a loss is in the books, really.
Yeah, certainly a couple of teams. Like I think Ireland, where they are, could recover from a couple of losses and in different Six Nations. They could recover from it in time for the World Cup. But there's a couple of teams who really, their backs would be firmly against the walls if things don't go well over the next 6 weeks. I would include probably England, France, and perhaps even Scotland in that bracket. Where they probably need a good tournament just to lay a foundation there that they can believe in and build on when it comes to the tournament footy in September.
Well, just even if you look at how last year worked for the Northern Hemisphere teams in terms of the timing of it, like the Six Nations did inform how well the teams fared in the autumn. And that's going to be the same kind of cycle. You're going to want to be ready slightly sooner than that, which is always a gripe for Northern Hemisphere teams with the World Cup. But it's like the teams that rode the momentum wave from the Six Nations, namely just Ireland and Wales, were the ones that exceeded in the autumn series as well. The rest kind of struggled when that challenge was laid down, and that's off the back of a poor Six Nations. So like, there's no getting around the fact that it's still important to try and win your games and try and like register a very strong showing in this tournament. Certainly for the likes of England, for their confidence and pomp, they won't. I don't predict a repeat of last year's like lowest ever kind of finish, but they still could struggle just looking at their run of games and some of the issues that we were highlighting with them as well. So
I mean, to look on England and sort of start with them, they still, for me, like they have obviously the potential to be a very, very good side. They're still just making one or two errors. I mean, the 1 and 2 are Barrett and Good from Saracens, who we've been harping on forever.
We've been calling for that inclusion,
especially for me, Brad Barrett, but also Alex Good as well. They're very different problems, but just the issues that they've had at 12, defending that 12 channel, are ongoing. And I just don't know if I give as much as the coaching ticket. Like it's not. I promise it's not sort of partisan or nationalistic bias, but they really rub me the wrong way, the English coaching ticket, in terms of just being inward looking, being self-critical and self-analyzing. I mean, they don't seem to solve any of the problems. They ride momentum waves and go through negative momentum waves as well, but they never seem to, like when the problems emerge, they never actually get fixed. It's just games can become about something else, and they can find a way to win games in some other ways, but the problems always re-emerge. Defensive issues, they still
12
have.
channel, it's like it reared its head in the Six Nations last year, and then come autumn, Delindy was still storming down that channel, and with like ridiculous success. Like I like Delindy, he's a solid, strong runner, but there shouldn't be that much
Crawley
purchase.
did it the week after off the bench.
A completely different kind of player and a different threat ball in hand, but the same result.
And then the Japanese boy the next week cut through them and scored a try. It was in that channel every single time.
And it was only when they fatigued that England got the upper hand on them. It was a fitness thing, and it was a tier 1, tier 2 kind of difference. But as far as when the game was competitive and combative, they were right there because they were being played into the game by some of those loose English plays. There's a lot of those problems just have gone unresolved. And yes, Brad Barrett, like credence has to be given to form, as we've often, like, form dictates is a normal thing. And it's like, I know Ben Teo's was included in the squad and is now removed, but like, he's been their answer at 12 when they want a more direct thing instead of the Ford Farrell option. They've gone to him, and it's like, is his Worcester form really better than Brad Barrett's captaining Sarri's form?
Yes,
and it's like, no, it's not. And it's like, which team do you want to be? It seems to be a hodgepodge.
Frankly, they still don't know what they're doing with their midfield. And Manu Tuilangi's coming back, obviously a class player, but potentially that has the possibility of opening up even more defensive frailty.
It does, yeah. Well, like, I know Gordon Darcy was while analysing one of Leicester's games in the Champions Cup was just raising some concerns he's had with Tuilagi's form since returning this time, especially his instincts on defence, just some bad reads and getting himself into some dodgy positions. And maybe it is too soon to give him straight into Dublin to some kind of absolute mess of a game. It could be too soon, but then what do they want instead? Do they want Slade featuring heavily? Do they want the Ford Farrell option again? Which is like
defensively they have their issues. In attack, they're not winning enough contacts. They're not being clever enough around the fringes. First of all, not generating enough quick ball. Ben Young's form has basically gone out the window. But in just a lot of technical areas, they're not as good as they perhaps should be. Things like when you look at Ireland and you look at just how prepared they are in the areas of set piece, exits, restarts, discipline, and then big one. Defensive shape. I mean, England, one thing to give them credit for is they do score tries. They get the ball to their wingers, they move the ball with a bit of width. Farrell plays a big role in a lot of what they do, but their backs can handle the ball, they can exploit space, and they can find tries. That's one of the things that they can do. But just in terms of being organised around the park, I just don't know if they're on the level of the top teams. And this is an important Six Nations to establish some kind of confidence and some kind of systems that you can believe in. Because it still to me feels very hodgepodge, and it still to me feels like they're missing that little answer. It seems like they're not realising it. It wouldn't surprise me to see them go week on week, and then one week it's Ford Farrell, and then that doesn't quite work, so then Tio's drafted back in, and then it's like that doesn't quite work either. Even in winning performances, like things like teams with momentum can tend to paper over those cracks as well. So it's just like, I don't know, even if they do find some success, but if they're chopping and changing and haven't solved anything in that midfield, it could be dangerous for them. I think there's a lot of purchase for a lot of teams in this tournament alone, but also in the World Cup, to be getting at them in that way. The other issue they have now is obviously in the breakdown area without Underhill.
Because he was a big part. Like, he was found wanting a little bit last year. He was rushed in, though. I can never blame a young player. It was kind of, we were talking about even Adam Hastings and his extra responsibility in Scotland. Well, no, in Glasgow initially in this season, and just how soon it was. Whereas like Underhill, they kind of twigged, having lost however many offensive breakdowns to being pilfered, that they needed a 7, and he was like the only guy who applied for the job, and suddenly was there, and suddenly it was way too much. And certainly in the Ireland game, in the decider, it felt like it was too soon for him, and he was bullied a bit and found a little bit slow. But in autumn, I think he really kind of came of age, found himself in that All Blacks performance. He was one of the standout players in the park. That's been an issue for the All Blacks as well, is just not recognising the importance of that 7 role, and he had a field day when he was the only one on the park. He went on to repeat some of that form against us in the Bath head-to-head.
Leinster double headers, absolutely.
He was absolutely tremendous in both, and now he's injured. So now it raises another quandary where they're chucking another guy in. They probably will pick a 7. I think that is a lesson that has been learned.
The lad from Newcastle,
yes,
I think I forget his name.
What is his name?
Come on back to me.
Yes, yeah, but they'll pick him, as in they're not going to upset that back row kind of system that they have now, where they do have a 7 in there. It's kind of going back to standardized format for rugby, where before they were taking a few liberties and it didn't work out. So like I think their pack is reasonably settled. They can chop and change a few because they just have that kind of depth, and they do have good quality players. But it's like you're talking about, it's whether or not they're going to form a cohesive unit or not, and like what the balance is between picking players from based on their form singularly in a club. So if you're talking about picking a Ben Teo, which I know they're not, he's obviously isolated from the rest of the boys who are playing at Sarries or wherever. And it's like, when all that has to come together, where do you want your pairings? You're suggesting they're probably going to go with the Sarries locks. Cruz and Itoje.
Cruz and Itoje would be the incumbents. I would do that. Back them. Yeah, absolutely.
They might go something crazy and pick Itoje at 6, and then just to include
Launchbury and I don't foresee that.
No,
they could, but I don't foresee it. I don't know that they've. It feels still like you're speaking as you were in 2016 about a team with bags of potential.
Yeah,
but nothing in the last 3 years has really been figured out.
They haven't shown anything.
Nothing's been figured out.
Yeah.
Like, the coaches haven't actually come to any conclusions seemingly on any of these questions about what to do where. And for that reason, I would be skeptical of their chances to actually go on and win the tournament.
They have a world-class 10 in Farrell, which can plug a lot of those holes and go a long way.
All over the pitch. I mean, Hooker, in terms of dynamism, you're not going to do much better than Jamie George.
True.
In the loose. All class. Again, a scrum that could potentially batter you. World-class locks. You know, and Billy Vunipola, one of the best 8s around.
His form will dictate a lot of theirs, because in their successful times and like in the season since with his absence, the marked difference in how they perform and how the results go cannot be understated. Because for a team that, like we're saying, are a little bit lacking in some of that shape sometimes, a little bit disorganised, the fact that he can just bust open a hole in the middle and get his hands free and get an offload creates an awful lot for really good players, competent players, and you're saying the backline can take tries off that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's still a lot of potential, and as long as that potential is there, they're always going to be a chance. But I just don't know if it's.
I think it's they're always up there in the top top 5 usually, for the most part, purely based on that. And another team, I like, just to segue off, because we've spent a lot of time on England, but France are another team that I think are similar to that in terms of just that wrapping up. They're always potential to be dangerous, potential to play the game in a million different ways as well, with the personnel they have and some of the class personnel options that have been omitted. So it's like there's still a question mark as to what they want to do. And very often, like what we've seen in the last few years is just been each tournament or little fixtures that they're in, they play a completely different brand, and they've been rotating coaches and stuff. Sometimes they're very defensive minded, very physical, and don't even like holding the ball for that long. They'll kick it to you and smash. Other times they want to pick centres on the wing and get it really wide really fast and do things like that. And it's like, we don't know. It's always come Six Nations weekend. It's like which France are going to turn up. The same questions are always.
What do France want to be is the big question. And the reason that you're asking these questions is because of the inconsistency in everything that's going on over there. In terms of, like, you want to talk about the England coaches for not having solved anything. I mean, I don't think they've even tried to answer any of these questions. They've just thrown different combinations and different game plans and different styles together and tried to see what will happen.
True.
I'm interested. I feel like now, you know, if you want to talk about a more positive light, like England's objectives for what they want to do with the Six Nations, they want to find those combinations. They want to settle on a game plan, settle on a style, plug those holes in defence and settle on something, and actually have something to bring to the World Cup that's more tangible and more real than what's come before. And for France, like, it's obviously got to be done quickly, because seemingly the World Cup cycle has been blundered, throwing all kinds of mad combinations together. But you have a young squad in Toulouse who are producing some quality players.
They've included a lot of that Toulouse, sprinkled it throughout the squad.
Absolutely.
Which is like, that's good. That's recognising form, at least.
You have a big pack, you have a good scrum, very decent tight forwards, a great captain in Garado. You've many options at halfback. You've Camille Lopez, who you're going to back at 10, who has a bit of experience. So now what I would love to see, I don't believe it for a second, but what I would love to see is for them to settle on something, to actually make a call, and say, no, we're going to back this guy, as whether it's Dupont or Saran, Obviously no Machino in the squad, which puzzles me, but
he's fresh back, I suppose. It's
World Cup year.
He may get drafted in the coming weeks. I'd suspect he probably will. In fact, he'll play one or two more top tours games, get to hit outs and then get in.
You would hope so. But in terms of what France are going to bring to the table, are they going to be wide? Are they going to be forward oriented? I'd just like to see them make a decision. I mean, the key for them is going to be to marry all of their good qualities together, because seemingly whenever we see them defend well, it comes at the expense of their attack. Whenever we see them, physical up front, it just means they're going to be slower everywhere else.
Sloppier outside.
Sloppier,
usually,
exactly.
The omission of Bastro this week is an interesting factor.
Again, it just
changes everything that they were doing.
It does. It points to the bafflement. I mean, this is a guy you backed. You made your captain or vice captain for the last number of seasons, and now he's gone. Last year,
to be honest, I don't hate the call because I don't.
Well, last year they did the same. They dropped him for the first match and then brought him right back in.
Well, this is it. The other thing you don't know is maybe they'll have a great result against Wales. Half the team will go out on the tear, do something silly, and then it's a new team in. You never know. It could be that kind of shenanigans.
And no matter what happens this week, I mean, we're shooting this on Wednesday, or Tuesday even, so we don't have full knowledge of what the teams are going to be. But regardless of who France name in their team, regardless of how well they go in the weekend, you just don't feel with this coaching ticket that they're going to trust them, and more than individual results and winning, that's what they need, because time and time again we're seeing this French team put together good performances and not be able to finish it. We're seeing this heartbreaking broken pictures of Guirado on the bench. You saw it against South Africa. You saw it against Ireland. You've seen them put together good performances and not win. And that comes from just those top 2 inches of understanding each other, having faith in each other, having faith in your combinations, being used to playing with each other. All of that little it stutters your
trust is very much gone for them by the 70th minute, and it's like a lot of times it's in hold on mode, and a lot of times they don't make it, and
you have to develop that by playing with each other, developing a sense of belief and identity in the team. And I just think that could make the top 2 inches difference that turns those good performances from narrow defeats into victories against the top sides. And that's something that they have to do this year.
But that's a marked improvement overall on where French rugby was 8 years ago, and in the last World Cup cycle, compared to and even looking at the top couture now. I remember trying to watch some top couture games from that era, and it's just impossible. Totally. Now it's actually become a bit quicker, a bit more just it's still not at the European pace. They get found out a little bit when it gets to European level, so sometimes at international level you kind of expect the same. If teams are cogent enough to run them around for 60 minutes, the next 20 will be against slower, tired, big bodies, because they do still err on the side of big overall, and that can sacrifice some of that. But the things like the omission of Bastro this week, things like that steady stream of albeit losses, which is a problem in terms of a culture, and especially if the clock's ticking now, we're coming towards the end of this cycle into the World Cup, so you do want to be establishing more of a winning culture than a heroic losing culture, as we in Ireland know,
just a team culture
quite well,
a belief that they can go and do things, which comes through familiarity, I think. And it's everything is so unfamiliar all the time that it just puts a ceiling on their potential, and that's what annoys it, because as you say, it is great. Domestically, French rugby has improved. You've seen teams like Toulouse and Clermont go really well, playing a nice attacking brand with some French
lads in there.
That's massive, and you just like to see them put it together. And I just feel like this coaching ticket has perhaps blundered away what is a very talented squad, but
somewhat
they have the potential still.
This is it. That feels premature. They haven't yet.
Absolutely. So that's up to this point, which is still a good, a full Six Nations before the World Cup.
Yeah, plus no more at the other side of it about all these teams. But France, like we're saying, it's a big one for them, just in terms of that consistency of performance and consistency of result now as well.
And performance, result, and I would say selection. I would not like to see. I think you make a call on first or second week. If it goes pear-shaped first week and you want to back out of it and pick another squad, then you have to stick to that squad. But you have to give the guys something to go on. You have to let your starters know that they're starters, and you have to settle, rather than having guys on edge the whole time not knowing if they're going to be playing next week, to actually have them settle into the jersey and start to understand it. That's going to be the key for this Six Nations, and then if they can do that, they absolutely have the potential to go places.
Well, they always have 2 or 3 world-class squads worth of really good elite players, so it's always been the issue, is just stringing that together. So yeah, no, I'm curious to see. It's a big one for them opening day against Wales. A big one for both those teams. But I suppose we'll pivot to Wales. We'll get into a preview of all the games to come. But we're just kind of highlighting broadly speaking. Before we start with the tournament, where each team are at, and Wales are one who are actually riding much more. You're talking about consistency. Their selections aren't that consistent, but their depth is remarkable and very, very much the envy of most teams, you would suggest. And their performances last year, we highlighted it already. It was a wonderful year for them. They were there, but for a Stockdale pick, was an unbeaten year for them. I'm pretty sure in saying. What else did they lose? Who else did they lose to?
I'm not sure who else they lost to, but I dare for a Stockdale pick. They still had a lot of running to do.
No, I know. No, they were outplayed in that game in Dublin, but it's not in Dublin this year. It's in Cardiff, and as such, like, I don't put that much of a difference between those two teams.
Long way to go before that game. That game is the talk of everybody. I mean, Wales were covering it in their presser, which I actually didn't like the amount that they talked about in their Gatland and Alan Jones. They talked about the Ireland game almost as much as they talked about the French game.
Well, that's a danger because anyone knows going to France on week one is just a terrible place to go, because like France are similar to Wales, a team that kind of grows in confidence with each win, and it's like momentum can really bring them into a tournament. But similarly, if they are to lose, and if they do lose this weekend, the prospect of playing France either home or away for the rest of the teams in the rest of the tournament becomes an easier prospect than what Wales have to face now, because there's going to be banging of drums and blowing of horns and many thousands of French people singing La Marseillaise, not so much singing as roaring it at every Welshman they see.
France are going to be so determined to win that game. It's massive for them. They have to go to Dublin, they have to go to Cardiff. They're going to understand.
Go to Twickenham.
No, go to Twickenham. Sorry, they're going to have to understand that the importance of this game, and they're going to come out with everything. And for Wales, it's one of those curious years, because you say, they're probably more likely to win a Grand Slam because they have Ireland and England at home. But conversely, what that means is that you have France and Scotland away, who are two teams you back to beat at home. But all of a sudden, that makes 4 of the 5 fixtures very bloody difficult. You'd almost prefer sometimes. I mean, you look at the Ireland have the same issue. They have England and France in one pattern, so you're either going to Twickenham and Paris, or you're hosting the two of them. And you'd think that hosting the two of them might make it easier, but sometimes when you're going away from home, you back yourself to win one of those games and your home games, and then all of a sudden you have 4 wins. Whereas this time around, Wales, I mean, it's a fixture list, they're all in the balance, because Ireland and England, the home advantage can give them the edge, but France and Scotland, the home advantage can give them the edge. So it could go very well or very badly for them. And they really have to focus game by game. Let's say this first game is massive, because I think next week for them then is Italy, and then that really allows them to,
if they're 2 from 2 at that point, then they're motoring on.
And they have have that week break to prepare for the England game. Which, if they were on a roll, I'd back them to do.
If I'm actually at a point where if they win this weekend, I'm making them favourites. Currently, I'm having Ireland held as favourites, as holders, even though historically it's never been done. It's not that you haven't retained no double Grand Slams, but Ireland are in a great position now before week 1, and getting over the England hurdle straight away, if that's how it's to go, would be good for them. But Wales, if they beat France away, going to Paris, getting that scalp in the first week, similar to what Ireland had last year, just the momentum that gives you.
The sticky last 2 weeks, though. I mean, I would back them to get to the 3 wins from 3, and then they have that last 2 weeks where they have to play Scotland and Murrayfield, and then Ireland and Dublin. It's a tough ask.
It's a tough ask, but as far as mock World Cup preps go, that's not bad.
No, it isn't.
It's a good little run of games, and the order of them kind of suits just where their mindset would be at. But
the only, in terms of on the field, what they do, I mean, they're in a good place. Obviously, they move the ball very well. They play quite nicely. They're tenacious at the back row.
The tackle area is they're probably the best in it in this tournament.
The Sean Edwards defense is great for especially stopping sort of Irish style attacks that build from the pack forward. They're great for that. The only real concern is and it's maybe not a concern. I mean, it's just a question that's yet to be answered for me. It's just we just don't quite know how good that forward pack are, and whether they can stand up to the real heat of the best packs in the world. And it remains to be seen. I mean, they have a couple of challenges ahead of them, but as you say, it builds nicely for them all season. I mean, they don't meet the truly best pack, I'd say, which is Ireland's, until the last weekend, and they got a lot of time to figure things out before then. So for this tournament, it's not vital that they win it. They'll want it. They'll want silverware.
Sure.
But in terms of building, they just figure a couple of things out in the pack, blood a couple of young players, maybe figure out, I'm not sure if they need to, but maybe figure out exactly who you want at 10. I mean, they've 4 viable options at fly half at the moment, and they vary them.
They do, and there's an argument for all of them. It's looking more like that French kind of thing, where it's like a lot comes off 9 quickly, so the 10 kind of offloads some of that responsibility. They do have a lot of kickers in the back line as well anyway, so it's not particularly important as it is for other teams, but then you kind of weigh that up. But it's just, I don't know, probably they should have a general in there who's calling the shots.
They tend to play the same way no matter who's playing, but they probably are missing what other sides have, which is that general in at half,
which helps in very very close games towards the end of them. That's
so useful. Another way to phrase it is that jersey is there to be won by any of the 4 lads,
which is kind of, they'll all be looking to play their hearts out, so maybe this is where you can rotate that game time and get the most out of all of those weapons potentially. Like it's exciting. The only headaches you have and the only potential for mistakes is just wrong combinations, and that like is an extra frustration for a team such as Wales, where the depth is such that, like, if you pick someone and it doesn't work, that there were 2 or 3 other options who probably, on all evidence, that once it's not working would have been better, and you're like kicking yourself then. But that's the conundrum for them, because they have a lot of good teams, and they have a bit of form. They have less form than last year, is a concern in terms of their club teams.
Oh, totally.
And they had a very good Six Nations last year off the back of what felt like a spark of something new in a quite stale international setup. You had a fledgling Scarlets outfit that were coming and doing really good things in Europe, playing very fast, and just added another attacking dimension to their team, which did kind of follow throughout the whole year. But then in the autumn, it became more about their defence that won the games. So you're wondering, will they have both this time? Where is the confidence at for each of these players? Who do you want at 10 then? Do you want the Scarlet? Do you want the Cardiff Blue? They
don't identify themselves that way though. They really don't.
They don't. No, it's true.
They're like, Reece Paschal is a Welshman first, and a Scarlet comes after. Really.
It's very true, and that actually serves them really well.
At the moment, it is anyway. It has the potential to come loose. I mean, one of the advantages that they have is such a settled coaching setup. I mean, I think everybody knows where they stand in that squad, and they tend to they understand each other. The communication seems to be good. They know what they're doing in defence, and they know what they're doing in attack. They know what they're doing all over the park, which just makes it easier, just building on top. It's sort of the antithesis of what we were talking about with England and France. There's such a foundation there that now you can build things. It's an optimistic time for Wales, and they're in such a good place that they probably, in terms of targets for this tournament, don't need to focus on any one area. They have depth. They have pretty much solidity all over the place, and curious to see whether their pack can stand up to the toughest of tests. And then the other thing is just go out and try and win silverware, which is
they're still lacking for that. That would be a nice roll on for. That's the ideal, obviously, for them, is to win this tournament. And they're better placed than most. They don't have as much problem solving to do as just kind of ironing a few things out, deciding a few things, trying to keep that purring along and growing that consistency. This is where, being such a momentum team, should they lose a few or have a few results go against them, it could really stand against them come World Cup time as well. They'll much rather roll in with confidence and aplomb.
I don't disagree. To pivot on, the last 2 teams I think to go is cover ourselves.
Yes, we did.
We did not.
Did we? I know we didn't. No, Ireland. Yes, Ireland and Wales obviously naturally paired together as rivals, and certainly in the context of this particular Six Nations, that's the game on the last weekend, so it's being billed as that, and kind of fairly based off last year. It's like we're the top ranked teams in the tournament, so it's
a lot of ball to be played between now and then.
It's true. Ireland have tough enough games themselves, and they also have that target on their back, being Grand Slam champions. They still have a game plan that's been primarily very, very attritional, so it's a question of whether their attack can now add a dimension and maybe just grab a few cheap tries, as well as the very hard worked, very intricate ones. They've been showing a bit more of that last season, Stockdale being the revelation that he was.
Absolutely.
Hoping for that to kick on. A bit more connection and incision in the back line when we have the chances.
For sure.
Even though Sexton's the super general that he is, There were still times last year and still times on the Australia tour and times during autumn as well where there are tries on and Johnny doesn't get the ball in time, and then it's a carry one up, particularly in the 22. It's just we go bludgeoning many phases, which is an advantage in and of itself, in terms of just making the opposition make a load of tackles. It seems to be a big part, fundamental part of Ireland's game, is just keep ball and bludgeon, ball carrier. Eventually, even if you get the ball, you're stagnant and you're slow for that brief passage until it's pilfered again. But they'll want to be clinical from the off, because they have England in week 1, and if they're a bit off, they could be caught cold.
For sure. It's a curious one for Ireland. I mean, obviously they're in this great place. They're had a great 2018. Lots of good things happening for them, and they obviously want to keep that momentum. I think primarily, if you're Joe Schmidt, you're thinking that I think goal one is try and win this tournament. And in that department, I actually think it looks rather good for them.
It's winnable.
I think it's more than winnable. I think they're clear favourites for me. And that's a rugby based, I think, not partisan based. I'm ahead of Wales, I would say. I think they're clear favourites. I like
purely based off the fixture list.
I like the way the calendar works for them a lot, and they got this opening 2-week block, which is clearly going to be crucial. They got to beat England and Dublin, and then they got to go to Murrayfield and win. There's 2 big asks. If they do that, it's a 2-week break. It's a week's break, the Italy game, another week's break. Then you got France at home. Then you got this Grand Slam decider potentially set up. I mean, obviously a lot of ball to be kicked between then. But I would back them. I mean, I've been watching them now develop as a team, and on the big days, I back them.
They have a perfect combination of international form after the last outings being absolutely historical and wonderful, as well as good club form. Across the board, there's confidence in all the clubs and obviously at different levels. Connacht even in the lower tier, though, they managed to see themselves through. Every player in there has recent success to draw from at the provincial level. And now they're coming into
the system is well set up as well with Joe and all of the rest of it. But it's certainly, like, if they can get through the first opening 2-week block of games with 2 wins, that's the whole tournament for them. Because if they do that, and then they're going to Cardiff on a championship day, I've been watching Leinster and I've been watching Ireland now develop for the last year and a bit and going on through the Schmidt years. Every time there's a big day, I mean, when Ireland lose, it tends to be they get caught cold. But every time there's a big day with a bit of a lead up into it, they deliver. You never see Ireland teams lose finals anymore, really. Grand Slam deciders, I mean, not since 03 in England. If ever it gets to that point, they do tend to get it done, and I would see that as what would probably happen. I think there's a lot of danger, especially in that second game against Scotland, especially if he tries mixing up the team.
Well, the last time we went over there, caught cold and lost,
and that could certainly be the narrative.
It wasn't just caught cold though, that was the narrative, but it was too limited a game plan, and Scotland's chop tackling nullified it, and Scotland were clinical with their ball where we weren't. So it's like a few degrees below normal intensity, and then suddenly the game plan gets revealed for being a little bit one-dimensional sometimes if we're not dominant.
Absolutely. And that's the other element of this, because while winning is the first aspect of what Joe's priorities are, there are other aspects which you've already touched on, like developing the back line. There's a couple of key areas in terms of World Cup prep. If you want to be absolutely prepared in every area, they've got to look at what the defence looks like, what the defensive shape looks like without Rob Kearney. They have no answer to that at the moment in terms of who's going to fill in fullback. Are they going to defend the same way as Rob, where they're covering the whole backfield? If so, how? Because Rob is unique in that regard. His ability to cover terrain and defence. And if they're not going to do that, that changes the whole defensive structure.
For sure,
And then the other thing is Johnny Sexton. If Johnny Sexton is out of the team, the whole offensive structure changes. Because it's not all on the 10. Joey tends to come on and sort of ship it and try and just facilitate other guys to play themselves into the game. So I think what Joe would like to learn, I think what Ireland fans would like to learn for peace of mind is what they look like without Sexton, and what they look like without Rob Kearney, because those are just two individuals who can, as anyone knows, get injured or lose form or anything.
And they seem to change the system a bit more than should be warranted, considering the rest is so set and seamless.
Absolutely.
Where in the centres we don't know. Bundy Aki is probably the incumbent, but then if Henshaw and Ringrose are fit, are they the two starters? This is a question that needs answering now, because for the last season, really, it was Bundy who was fit, and only one of Henshaw or Ringrose at any given time. So it was kind of removed from.
There's also the liberty of being able to make that call week on week and change it up for different games, and different styles.
And I do like that option because for a team like us, as I've highlighted before, with the game plan being as attritional as it is, it's important to rotate the squad and use as much of it as possible. And that's where narrowing it down to the World Cup squad to come is more of a disadvantage for the likes of us, and probably Wales as well. They're just teams with outrageous depth who can rely on it and like to rotate it. Suddenly you're tasked with a block of games that's very, very heavy,
30 odd players, and that's it.
How do you rotate them? So these are all questions that Ireland be learning or be kind of teasing out while trying to win all their games, which is what they're in the tournament to try and do.
And the other little point I have noted down before we move on that Ireland could touch on is just whether they can still be comfortable in a situation where they've lost absolute control of a game. Because seemingly every time they win a game, they have complete control of it. And they're dictating where the ball is, what pace the game's being at, and they do it remarkably well. I mean, it's a question that hasn't had to be answered in a long while. Even in the All Blacks game, there was never that moment where the All Blacks were doing their thing and were in control of it. We just brought them to our level and played the game at our pace and forced them into it. But it does happen.
And certainly in a run of games, that is what the World Cup will be about, and the Six Nations is kind of about that as well. You're playing these blocks of games. How does that stack up when we lose control? Because against teams like France, just like any kind of, there are dangers of teams going ahead, and what happened like last World Cup where we just didn't have that extra attacking dimension, apart from Luke Fitzgerald in the game that it was. But once you go try, if the first 20 minutes do slip away and then we're way behind, what does it look like? How do we get back in? There's more cause for optimism there with the likes of Stockdale, Larmour having broken out, Ringrose establishing himself as really the key to linking all of those together.
Personnel wise, I'm not as concerned, but it's just in terms of what they actually do on the pitch. Are they going to do they have that gear in them where they loosen up and play a bit more like Leinster and really do start testing from wide channel to wide channel, trying getting their game players in space, or are they sticking to the formula that Joe has laid out for them, where it's set play, we're tiring them out, set play, their defence is going to do this, set play, and now we might sweep to the right, and that didn't work, but we're still holding the ball, and or are they going to have liberty to try things, and especially when if they need tries quickly,
is there an offloading game in there? That's kind of a question, because it's heavily discouraged, and it's been a good source of our success in terms of protecting the ball for that multi-phased bludgeoning attack. So it's a thing, but in the context of should we be behind,
more than just an offloading thing, it's actually just the ability to make reads and make those kinds of decisions heads up, rather than I believe Joe has an offloading play in him. I just think it's something like, we offloaded on third phase on this lad's weak shoulder because we know he bites out this way. Exactly. But are you going to have the ability to just, see something and go and make an offload? That it may not come up, especially this tournament. I actually do fancy Ireland to perhaps even do a Grand Slam this year. I would say that Scotland is just the way the calendar works out. I don't think Scotland are as good a team as Wales, but I just think the way the calendar works out, that's the biggest potential hiccup.
As far as just a tripping over and then being out of the tournament.
I think I back Ireland to do it. That said, we will preview the Ireland-England game and be sure to check that video out as well. But their England do have definitely a blow in that game. Nothing is decided, but Ireland, for me, in terms of winning the championship, I think they're my favourites anyway.
Right. And then the other two that we haven't done,
Scotland
and Italy, are both in an interesting state of affairs. The usual Scottish injury crisis has reared its ugly head, other than it's particularly bad this time with Hamish Watson being out, we feel, because he's a key source of a lot of their turnover ball, and they're not only their turnover ball, but they're slowing down of other people's ball,
and that defensive breakdown is just so key to how they defend. That's the biggest thing they have to solve. They have to figure out a way to maintain their attacking flair, which is so crucial to them, because it's what makes them exceptional.
Their tempo is what they need to be bringing to every game. If they're a bit slower and they do get sucked into a bludgeoning game, which happened a bit last season. I remember was it the France one that they just played all in the wrong areas and tried a few little pod carries and stuff before trying anything wide, and none of them worked because they just went backwards.
There's criticisms to be made of the Finn Russells and Hugh Joneses of the world, but those guys are their only chance to actually reach the top level,
a difference
to beat those teams. That's how they do it. But they need to marry that with getting a much better, much more organised forward pack and a defence that works in the middle, because at the moment the trade-off with Hugh Jones, it's just like, and it's not just Hugh Jones, it's what goes on inside him as well, obviously, and outside him. But the defence is
porous in the
very
centres.
Porous, and right through that back line. There's just tries to be found, and it's it's something that they need to prioritise and they need to fix. And then the other thing is just thankfully they have the liberty perhaps of the Italy game at home to get this right on week one, of just marrying. Because obviously Layla and Finn Russell are now playing in different clubs in France, and then you have what used to be such a Glaswegian based team. You have a whole lot of Edinburgh in there in the pack.
Well, you need to. This is now the task for this year, which is important. This is good timing for them to be having that kind of headache going into the World Cup. The World Cup calendar still doesn't stack up nicely for them at all, but they're looking now with Edinburgh finding form and Cockerell's Edinburgh project going exceedingly well, really cleaning house in that club. It means that Glasgow, who are a beautiful team to watch, a lovely team, but some of their key men, certainly Nakarau in their greatest iteration, they were not the full package as far as a Scotland test team's concerned, and that left Scotland in Six Nations gone by you'd be watching Glasgow going in thinking they're really dangerous, they could do for some, and they would inevitably turn one or two of the big teams over. But things like their away form, they just, like, when the pack like in those last exchanges when they don't have the Murrayfield factor at their backs, no help coming from the stands.
Teams resource the wide channels well in defence, and they can't get outside them. They have to have a play where they can go through them, and they can even suck the defence in. That has to be a part of their game.
And scrumming, which they have solved a little bit. They've certainly improved, and like Edinburgh's pack has just looked very, very elite. Obviously, they won't have a Mata
or a Schumann, but they will have Dell, and they will have Nell, and they will have McAnally. So they'll have a good scrum. And for them, I think, as you point out, the World Cup doesn't suit them right. But I think that's gonna. I think I still have that old comparison with Eddie O'Sullivan's Ireland to them. And like Eddie O'Sullivan's Ireland, I think the Six Nations is almost going to be mattering more to them, because they've had all these years of being. I mean, everybody. You ask any journalist over the last 3-4 years before the Six Nations, you always have like 3 or 4 of them going, "Oh, Scotland are the dark horses," and they've never really lived up to it. They've always come short in one area or another. And I think they're going to be massively motivated to more than any other team to actually this could be the whole of their year. Because it's almost, we can say now that they're probably going to get knocked out in the quarters, barring something extraordinary. That's going to be their World Cup, and they know that. I mean, they can prepare all they like, but to get to the semi-finals, they're going to have to beat one of the world's top 2, and to not make it to the quarters, they're going to have to lose to Japan. So I think. I don't. If I was a bookie, I wouldn't take your bet for Scotland to get knocked out in the quarters. That's probably what's going to happen. But this Six Nations can matter enormously to them to make statements to see if they can.
Well, it's just been a steady growth that has obviously been lacking. For they're a small nation and they have 2 professional franchises to pull from, and for too long. Like it was encouraging. For too long, both were shite, and it meant that the national team was obviously rubbish. But then Glasgow, the rise of Glasgow, and what Gregor's actually done for Scottish rugby and revitalised them, it's been wonderful. The knock-on effect has been that the Six Nations as a tournament has been better ever since Scotland have improved. That's I think the position where you can mark the turning point of the Six Nations from quite very much inferior to what was going on south of in the southern hemisphere anyway. Up till that point, whereas now they've added a different colour, different flavour. They are dangerous, score great tries. They just like we were saying, have always fallen short in one particular area. Usually it's defence,
and then the pack as well.
It's been a steady growth for them. This is a tournament that they'll be looking to try and get like at least 3. They want to be winning at least 3 games.
That win away from home would be massive as well.
That's a good little benchmark for them, because that's where a lot of journalists as well have been questioning that, where it's just like the and it's not even journalists, like the stats don't lie. Their form comparatively when they're home or away is just it's farcical, ridiculous, and that can't go on because like none of the games in Japan are going to be played in Scotland.
And you feel like they're more likely to turn Ireland over in Murrayfield than they are to go to Paris and win. Which you know, I think going to Paris and win is a very good benchmark for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then Twickenham obviously is the last weekend. Who knows what's going to happen? But those two games,
it would be nice for their confidence to register a performance in Twickenham, because they, like many other teams before them, do get the heebie-jeebies when it comes to that stadium and just do not play their game at all, or it just never works for them when they're there. And like that is a great factor that England have to ride in the context of this tournament a lot. France don't feel comfortable playing in Twickenham most of the time. Scotland, Wales. Like all of these teams tend to struggle. The only noted exception would be Ireland. Like even New Zealand, as we saw in the autumn, South Africa, true too.
They did lose in Twickenham, but that was very typical. The Springboks put in those kind of performances all the time.
Yeah, that's not like them playing not like themselves. That's more like them playing like themselves. Whereas New Zealand definitely didn't look like themselves in Twickenham, and it's always vexing to watch that from an Irish point of view, because Ireland do tend to deliver big performances in Twickenham. Italy? Last time they went to Twickenham. Last time they went to Twickenham, they changed the game. That's literally what happened. They didn't really do that. They played their game, and then Eddie Jones changed the game.
Yes, indeed.
But then the net result is that now he knows that he needs a 7. Yeah. Which is ultimately where
a long story that led us to there.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of Italy, to wrap us up, they are the one team this tournament that I think, again, like you want to talk about Scotland being predictable. They got South Africa and New Zealand in their group. I think that what Conor O'Shea is doing and what they're doing in Benetton and beyond is actually bigger than this cycle. I think they're one team that isn't necessarily at all focused, perhaps even on the World Cup. I don't think it matters.
Their biggest game of the pretty much ever, but like certainly in the context of the last little while, was Georgia, and they got over that hurdle.
That was a massive game.
That was a huge game.
Conor O'Shea is still bragging about it in his press conference. He was saying like, I'm sorry we beat Georgia. He told all the journalists, like, I know that didn't fit into the narrative, but we're, and that's he's confident that Italy are with the level that they were firmly in when he took the job, was amongst and perhaps at the bottom of the pile of Japan's and Fiji's and Georgia's. But
they're in that's where the argument lay, and that's it. It was with good value, there was good reason for thinking that, because all European calendars in the Heineken Cup before it was reformed featured 2 Italian teams getting shellacked routinely by every team, home and away, and so that wasn't a pretty picture. And then it would come around to Six Nations calendar, and they'd get hosed by every team, and occasionally challenge Scotland for wooden spoon honours. And it's just like ever since then, and then also at World Cups, don't do anything and get obligingly eliminated at about that appropriate tier 2 level. So but since then he has been very hands on in both Benetton and Zebra, trying to create those little pockets of rugby again, trying to just resuscitate the love for the game from the ground up. So it's been very youth focused, and like their progress on that front has been quite remarkable. Like their under 20s, I think, beat England for the first time, or was it under 21s?
They did Ireland.
They did Ireland last year. A lot of those players are now filtering in to the national side. It's no longer the Parise show, which it was for too long, when it was that flogging that dead horse of a team that would just give it to Parise in any position. But now, there are young lads coming through. They're probably still that level below where it'll be like the results will probably go against him, and there'll be a lot of uncomfortable press conferences for Conor O'Shea to have to deal with it, but performance is more important than consistency. I like
Conor O'Shea's priority he was talking about in the press. Like they may end up replacing him, it seems, perhaps after the World Cup. But he's satisfied that he's laying a foundation for something real, even if he's not the guy who gets to feel the effects of it. Which is honourable, I think, and
it's very honourable
and very good.
Like he's repeated his feat as far as that when Harlequins was like a good little model of take an absolutely sunken ship, try and clean house a bit and tidy it up and give you the culture back and get things going again. And now this has been a much bigger job than that, because it was really, you had to fix the whole system. The whole system. I mean, because they got into the Six Nations and created the Six Nations, the tournament, based off really the form of 3 classy players and a really good team at that time that overperformed compared to what the actual roots of the game in the country were. They did have economic factors that are influencing their inclusion, because Italy's a huge, like, you want to get Italians interested in rugby. I get that entirely, and it's like they never really had the systems or the players coming through to back that up, and it's meant decades of really shoddy performances, which, if you were an Italian rugby fan, you would be very annoyed to watch and discouraged to watch. So now this last few years, it's felt like improvement.
It's not just the it's not just the you know, that the performances have been bad. It's that they have been in that mold of a tier 2 nation, and I think you know, in terms of the grassroots of rugby in the country, it's not like it's massively there in any kind of, like, when you compare it to a nation like Georgia, there's no comparison. It's not
their national sport,
not even close. And you know, they're in the Six Nations from, like, Diego Dominguez and money, and those are probably the two key reasons why they're in the Six Nations to begin with. But having been in there, I mean, they give out, you know, that playing the top teams, they get graded against a different curve than perhaps their real competitive rivals. And then they also get punished more in the rankings.
You wouldn't want to pull that thread too hard, though, because then, because then it's like, well, then if you're at that level, then why not include George?
Well, that's the point. But and beyond that as well, it does give them the advantage of being able to realize what works and what doesn't work at the top level, where you get a team like Georgia who can go unbeaten for 3 seasons doing something that is fundamentally wrong in a few ways that only gets figured out when once in a blue moon that they get to play a top tier team. Italy do have that advantage.
True.
But I respect the hell out of Conor O'Shea and what he's doing. He's making Italy as good as Italy can be, I think.
Certainly right now.
Developing the grassroots. Treviso are going well. Long term, I do still think that the sort of tiered system is going to have to change, because, you know, however good you can get, you know, the grassroots of Italy going, it's not going to compare to, you know, if the US or Japan get fully into it.
True. But like there are a few different factors. Like Treviso's form is very encouraging.
No, listen,
has never happened
all
of their history of any of the rotating clubs and different kind of franchises they were trying to put in place. Like it's been a huge growth period for them, and they still have to go through the shellackings of the Six Nations more often than not, and this could be another year of that. But
I suspect there's definitely danger,
and like, even if it means that they lose games in the last 20 minutes, I think I wouldn't be surprised to find them in the lead against even some top teams at points during their games.
Indeed, and perhaps more losing bonus points and try bonus points. They're going to have a lot more to them this year. They have a genuine, proper professional team. They're going to be fitter. They're going to be smarter. They're going to be stronger. They have good backs.
They're still going to be competitive. They're still big in the pack physically. So
I wonder about ultimately their defensive shape. I don't think they have a proper.
That is a problem.
Conor O'Shea and Mike Catt aren't actually necessarily defensive minded guys either of them.
Actually, do you know what? I wasn't as worried about their shape last year because it was never tested enough beyond they'd be numbered up and then just miss a tackle. So like the shape's fine there, but they just missed a load of tackles. So it's like the question marks over people like Campagnaro, who's great going for it, similar to like Hugh Jones, actually great ball in hand, looks dangerous, really does fall off too many tackles in the 13 jersey.
You can be smarter in your defensive shape than just numbering up, though. Is
true.
The other thing.
That's a good point, but it never got there last year.
No,
because they would just miss tackles, not even in that multi of a phase, only phase 2 or 3, and then it's like try time, and that showing against Ireland in that quirky game in the autumn that was in Soldier Field. That was very poor as well.
It was very poor. They were in full on Georgia mode.
They were in Georgia mode.
Like, I don't think O'Shea will ever reveal just, you know, how, like, I mean, he's almost revealing it in how much he said it, but just how much prep and how much work went into that game.
Victory.
I think he understood as well as us, despite, you know, deriding people for
even suggesting that Georgia should get in,
which is
his obvious role as coach to try and deflect and back his team, obviously.
But despite what he said, like, I think that game was so massive for them that the trip to Chicago was like a money making exercise that was you know, it was an inconvenience that had to be done.
But I actually think it stood to them, and comparatively I don't think Georgia were as well prepared as they ought to have been. A tune-up match, a hit out. I think there's good benefit to that, especially if you're looking to be cohesive in executing a plan to attack a particular team. It can't all be the training paddock, because that's not as good prep. Massive stadium compared to your home stadium, whereas Georgia had to travel. You know, there's all kinds of factors. But the point is that they got that job done. have allayed that debate. So that's Conor O'Shea can revel in the fact that doesn't have to be a debate this year. We're in the Six Nations. We're Italy, here to perform, and hopefully score a few more tries and just give prettier performances.
I would like
to
look
a bit
them.
better.
I would be gutted to see them taking 3-pointers this year. Because in terms of points on the board, it's like when a tier 2 team plays a tier 1 team. It's like that when the US played the All Blacks in Soldier Field for that game, and they took a 3-0 lead, and you felt like just smacking them. Your only way, and first of all, it's your only way to win matches against these teams that are better than you on paper
and fitter than you. Is another point. Like, look at what Japan had. Japan went for it against England, but found themselves gassing with 20 minutes to go, and England inevitably running a few tries. So if you factor that into your prep as going, right, these boys are going to be fit and going to come at us in the last 20, we need to score the tries with all the chances that we have. It's something we've brought up on this podcast before. Things like Munster against Sarries in a couple of seasons ago in the semi-final, where they were like getting into that 3-point game in the first half when they were up and physically actually dominating Sarries, which was very impressive. But it's like, that's a 40-minute performance that you're not going to be able to replicate, and Sarries are still the superior team who will find tries. So you need to be scoring your tries now. No value in the 3-pointers. This is where, like, the phrase free 3 points is such a misnomer. It's not even funny. We don't like it on this podcast. Don't like hearing it. Commentators say it, and yet particularly this side of the equator, they say it all the time.
Be prepared to hear it in the Six Nations.
Take your 3 free points. Take the points that are on offer. Take all that. Take your foot off the throat is another way of phrasing that. If you're actually bludgeoning your way into the 22 to the point where there's an easy 3-pointer as a result of a penalty of all the pressure, you chip 3 points over as the inferior team. It's like you're just sacrificing your one chance of getting
3 points
scores.
Is never going to rattle a team that is superior to you, and that's everybody for Italy. So you'd like to see them. I'd like to see them
kick everything to the corner.
I'd like to see them get some, even in losing efforts, get some 4-try bonus points. They only got 1 point last year, match point, table point in the whole thing. They should really be looking to get a point, at least a point out of every game. Really going for it.
And be that by scoring 4 tries while the other team scores 6 or 7.
If that's what happens,
that's more beneficial to you than a 20 points to 10 loss, where you only let in a couple of tries, but you didn't score any yourself. Like, that.
I'd love to see them do that, and I think with O'Shea there, he's an ambitious guy. I think there's a chance that they do that, and there's also a chance that if they do that, they do rattle teams. And they do
scare them. And this is it. Like, if the first 20 minutes, there are a few teams, certainly France and England are both teams that if it goes against them for the first 20 minutes, and like we've actually noted that about England particularly, their inability to adjust on the fly is just very disappointing for a team with ambitions like they have. Like, it does take them to half time to regroup very often from whatever disturbing picture is being presented to them. It takes them getting back in and going back out rather than actually adjusting on the fly. So Italy need to be taking advantage of that,
absolutely,
and just going for it, seizing that initiative. It is something we're going to keep harping on it. Hate seeing in the underdogs chipping 3-pointers over in the first 20 minutes. I just do not like seeing it. It's
obviously context dependent, but especially when it's born of pressure. It's relieving that pressure, as well as it adds 3 points to the scoreline. Fair enough, but
you're not going to be nilled.
Exactly, and it conversely, more than you'd think, in a game that's loose and open, I actually don't hate the call as much, but in a game that's slow and everything is moving slow, when you've actually got yourself into prime territory and you get a penalty, you don't know how long it's going to be until you're back there.
True.
So maybe it's the time to really exert that pressure and put real scoreboard pressure, which is 7 points.
7-pointer, make it that kind of game.
That's sort of a tangent in terms of.
Well, I think it's important. It is and it isn't. I think it's important as far as Italy and their ambitions for this tournament and what they should be looking to accomplish going into World Cup and beyond. Even if it's without Conor O'Shea, that's what he'll want to have stamped in place.
By the way, just for the record, I think that would be a huge mistake to cut Conor O'Shea loose, regardless of what happens in the World Cup. For the 2 Laurens of Racing, it doesn't seem to make any sense. Like, those guys are working with mercenaries and just having them fling the ball around. That's
questionable.
I don't know if that's the same thing. It was certainly, if you're not happy with what you're seeing in terms of results on the field in the Six Nations and you want to bring in a new coach,
by all means,
fine. Listen, do that. And if you want to axe him as head coach, just keep him on as director of rugby. Just don't let it die, and don't hand the wheel to the 2 Laurens.
It's a I'm inclined to agree with you. I really rate what Conor O'Shea's been doing, and it's based off performances. It's not necessarily results, but what we've seen from Italy and Italian sides from the bottom up has been a marked improvement for the duration of his tenure. So that's and they won their ultimate cup final of it against Georgia last year. So it's like he's done a great job. Yeah. And to dispute that is wrong-headed in my eyes.
Absolutely.
But
we're gonna pivot on now to previewing the 3 games that are happening this weekend. Starting, of course, with this Friday evening's game, the only Friday evening game of the championship. It's taking place in Paris at 8:00 Greenwich Mean Time.
Is it 8? Oh, okay.
Late enough fun. It's France against Wales. And
we touched on it before, but that's the big game.
In terms for both of these teams, it matters massively. The way the calendar works for Wales is if they win this game, they're probably going to go into those last 2 games, which are tough games, but they're probably going to go in 3 from 3.
Yeah.
Win one of those games, you got 4 wins.
Serious.
Win 2 of them, you got yourself a slam. So winning this game for Wales would be massive. For France, it's everything because they have to go to Dublin, they have to go to London. They really could do with a win to open their tournament. They knew that last year and put everything into trying to beat Ireland and just came up short
against what proved to be last year the second best team in the world. So there's no question that France still have it on their day in Paris. They still have that performance that is stifling, physical, and very intimidating to play against. And like Wales, for such a momentum team, could get knocked off of it. Their train doesn't even leave the station if they manage to get upset here. And is it an upset? I'm trying to rationalise who the favourites are, because Wales are obviously coming off, as we've said, a tremendous year and are a very, very good team and have a lot of depth and have the most settled coaching ticket of any of the teams in the tournament, and it's all leading me to believe they're favourites. But France in Paris on day one is a dangerous prospect.
If you're a Jacques Brunel, I'm very curious to see how you approach this.
Yeah,
because he's obviously approached games in so many different ways as the coach. Like when you're talking about Wales and what you want to do with Wales, there's obviously just that little. Jonathan Davis just back from injury. He isn't the sharpest defender at 13 anyway.
No, it's true.
Do you spin the ball and attack them and really go for it early doors? Of course, risking, turnovers, mistakes, Wales having the ball, Wales being able to tire you out. I would back Wales. I'd back Wales
covering the kicking game.
I'd back Wales' fitness, but in terms of how they approach it, like it's sort of a heads up between trying to picking your young guys, your Fofanas, your rock star guys, and throwing them in there and trying to get them to score tries, or being sort of like they were last year in the Six Nations, very tight, playing territory and not allowing Wales to impose their game on you and not allowing Wales to tire you out. Slowing the pace of the game down, exiting well, using your kicking game to put them under pressure, make them constantly have to exit. Is that a smarter play, slowing Wales down and containing them and making it a dogfight?
Or is it break it all up and back your crazy flim-flam against Wales' crazy flim-flam? Both sides have that in spades as well, but
Wales are probably fitter.
Would
be probably the deciding point for me, and especially when France have such a big pack, you see them cease to become, like you saw in the All Blacks in those 3 games against the All Blacks, just how ineffective they became as the match went on, because they just got tired and then they got slow getting around, they took corner, and then it was just try after try after try after try.
That was the end of a season where this is the start of one.
I think the point still stands.
I think you're probably right.
I guess I'm sort of talking myself into leaning towards being more conservative. Get backing Lopez and whoever you pick at 9, which is a decision in itself.
True.
Yeah. I'd like to see them back Saran. I know Dupont has been brilliant, but he's been in the squad. I would put Dupont on the bench and give him a run out, but I would like to see them back Saran and give him a go.
Maybe to kind of rate Dupont as a more solid option than Saran, and I also think Saran is more of a kind of a game breaker off the bench than Dupont maybe is as well. But then
I think Saran's kicking game might be better though. And I'd like to give him the test of putting in a Conor Murray performance, of actually putting the ball in behind the Welsh back 3. It is an area where Wales are vulnerable. They play that Sean Edwards defence. The back 3 bite in a bit.
They do.
Lee Halfpenny tends to them, as Rob Kearney does for us, covering the whole backfield. There is no Lee Halfpenny this week.
So it'll be Liam Williams, who is less adept at that. He's good at many things, Liam Williams, but he's not as good a reader of just that. He's just left with a lot to do, because Welsh wingers, all of them,
George North and Steph Evans, more than others even, they very much creep up into the line. So there's going to be space to kick it into. The question is whether France will first of all try to play that game. Second of all, are going to execute and are going to find that space and pin Wales back. And then it just becomes a case of you have to exit. Your forwards have to do a lot of work. You have to secure your own line-out ball, and then that's where France's pack is going to be comfortable down in their territory, forcing them to exit, giving you the ball, and you a chance to impose yourself in the game, and then maybe chipping it back down into the corner and just keeping them pinned back. I think that might be the most prudent way to play Wales if you're France. The other
up
option,
with a few chips over the top. I like that. I like that set play against that Sean Edwards defense is good. Just a little dink over the top and have your Fofanas chasing it.
I would say pick the flair guys. Pick your I would say probably Dumaru and Fofana in the centre, but Penaud on one wing. I would put Thomas Ramos at fullback over Maynard, and then get all those guys.
Who's on the other wing then?
Who is on the other wing? Huget, possibly Huget. No, Huget over Maynard anyway. And maybe I'm forgetting someone. Obviously, there's no Teddy Thomas. But Huget and Penaud for now anyway.
Yes, that can change.
But so you have that flair option. But I would say as a first up game plan, put it on Saran and put it on Lopez or Dupont if you pick him to put the ball in behind them, to pin them back, to get loads of territory. To make the game scrappy and low scoring early doors, and then pick your moments to strike and attack, as they did against Ireland in that game that worked right up until the 80 whatever minute last season. They were in. They knew they weren't as good as Ireland, but they defended really well, played the territory game really well, kept Ireland from scoring and kept Ireland at bay and kept within a score. And then Teddy Thomas had his magic moment, which nearly stole the game.
It's always a factor. You do predict magic moments in that Stade de France. They're good for some. They normally are good for one or two a game against whatever opposition. So it's like maybe try and constrict things, tighten it up. As for Wales, they're going to want to chop that ferocious carry game that France are inevitably going to bring, particularly in the first half in Paris in the first game. It's going to be like a big defensive shift. So their technique has to be on point. Whoever they pick in the back row have to be stopping people, and if they're not, that's where danger lies. If they're losing to too many of those collisions and then suddenly their defence has to retreat rather than advance, that's where the danger could lie for them. They'll want to get that aspect of their game right first, which is what they were focusing on in autumn as well. And then they do want, there's still question marks as to who the halfbacks are going to be, but they want them using every inch of grass on that park to move that pack around and be quick.
Running the ball is key from side to side. It tests the French defence. I'd like to see when France have the ball, I'd like to see them also just test the integrity of the French offensive clean out. First of all,
they always do that against any team anyway.
Exactly,
they're good for getting in there and just spoiling.
Attack that pill, see if you can get a few turnovers. I mean, France obviously, they've Wenceslas-Larry and Camara and pick them all will probably be the back row.
True.
That's it's a decent back row, but probably not ideal for clean outs. And then you've Van Mahina, who can be quite lazy in the clean out. Torre is a young guy, so there's perhaps profit there in just attacking that pill. Certainly if you have a guy like Tipuric in there, that can be his job. And then outside of that, the only real
Tipuric and Ken Owens will go for some.
Ken Owens, of course, absolutely.
But they're all even their locks. Wales, I rate them as tending to be better in that area.
Alan Wynne always has a big one.
Well, it's not even with steals. They're just combative there. They make the breakdown a fight every time, and they make you make your clean outs. And if you're not, they find turnovers, and it can be any number in the Welsh jersey that finds it, because so many of them are doing that kind of work anyway. Just not even to steal, but to slow and to allow that time for their defensive line to put that unbelievable pressure on that they really do want to bring. So, should all that go their way, I do back them as the better side, and I think that they will grab tries and ultimately take the game off that. But that's where I'm very interested to see what happens at the very start of the game, and if France are rampaging over them, because that could happen. And
the other thing is as we pointed out when we were talking about France, that there is that outside channel. I actually back the Welsh D on inside channels no matter who they're against.
True.
It we've seen it with Ireland over the years since Sean Edwards has been there, that they just don't let you in that way. No matter how much forward carrying you do around the fringes, they're just
not where the try lies.
But they do have perhaps I love Jay Davis. I think he's one of the best attacking centres in the world, but defensively his reads can be skewed a lot of the time, and he can make mistakes, and France obviously could light it up. They're not playing Bastro this week, so
that'll be interesting. That's a good statement of intent if I'm right in reading that into it, that they do want to go a bit wider, a bit faster. It's
probably a counterpoint to my suggestion of how to play the game, but you never know.
Don't know. Well, I still do think you want to strike a backline that can strike with for both
a lot
of these teams.
A lot of pace. That's going to be just something for Wales to have to worry about. If nothing else.
And then the selection of people like Penaud on the wing, it's been like I kind of don't mind some of that. They had like in terms of having kind of converted centres out there, so that they're at least protecting their own ball when they go to deck out there. Some stuff like that can pay dividends. I'm just curious to see what it stacks up like. How wide are they willing to go early on? Are they going to be, are players like Penaud going to be getting on the ball at all, or is it going to be like the first half comes and goes and it's like, oh yeah, Penaud's playing, and you're just like, I would be okay with that if they were playing the game in the right parts of the field. I think the danger in going straight to the back line and trying to tear Wales open is if it doesn't come off, it's going to rattle your confidence. You're going to make mistakes and you're going to play Wales into the game. True.
And you're going to tire your big forward pack. So I just think
do they have the systems in place? Do they have the shape to be putting some of their big ball carriers, putting your Wenceslas-Laurets up against your Hadley Parks and Jay Davises in the midfield, trying to work clever little plays to get the carries happening, just not quite around those fringes? I don't know if I can back their shape to create that kind of spot, that kind of intricate.
No, that's not how defensive line. It'll be individuals making reads if things do come off for them in offense. But to start the game, I would like to see them just play territory and get Wales pinned back and kick well and kick smart. From Wales's perspective, I think that backfield issue is a concern. Like Ireland without Rob Kearney that we were talking about a little earlier.
Who's covering the space? There's a lot of grass there, boys.
Are they going to adjust their defence and have maybe Steph Evans or George North go back and cover some of that space, or even whoever's playing at 10?
It still leaves that concern, because I just as classy as those operators are, like you're saying, ball in hand, I just don't rate them as amongst the world's elite as far as that aspect of that positional play. Like just minding that backfield. If they pick Patchell or Anscombe, both of those guys have experience at 15.
True. That from a defensive point they could drop into the backfield. That could be a huge if France go that route. That could be the way to defend it.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, it's maybe a good call for either starting Patchell or Anscombe.
It's certainly for the Ireland game, because that's how Ireland would like to attack Wales, because Wales have such a ferocious defence and a great turnover game. Ireland probably kick against Wales more than any other side, I would dare say. But France, I think it's a good tactic against Wales. But I just don't know if they're going to do it.
Go into your head then, who's going to be at 10? Because we still don't have the team, so it's like, who's going to be at 10 for Wales steering that ship?
I don't know. I don't think it'll be Jared
Williams at 15.
Yeah,
which means that Anscombe's probably more in the running for the 10 jersey than the 15 jersey.
Could be Anscombe at 15.
Anscombe at 15 and Patchell on, and then you have two.
Anscombe at 10 and Patchell at 15.
Options.
Yeah. Dan Biggar have a shout.
Dan Biggar have a shout. Does he? I don't know. The Scarlet.
I don't think Jared Evans has a shout.
No, I don't. But it's good that he's getting exposed to it.
I think he's very good.
Yeah, I think he's actually really good. In a Cardiff team that's like so light in the pack, he creates a lot of good tries in that back line. So he's a good option too.
But I don't know. They don't yet have someone standing out as 10. I rate the guts and the ballsiness of Dan Biggar probably ahead of most, just mentality wise. Like a big kick in a big moment.
Yeah, if you're looking for that kind of this is our general, he's taking us there. If that's what they want. But if they want a rotation there, then maybe Dan Biggar I don't think fits into that slot as well.
I think on balance between in terms of fitting into the Welsh rotation from last year, you're thinking either Patchell or Anscombe. I think on balance Patchell is probably just slightly the better rugby player of the two.
I think he's probably slightly the better 10. I don't know about rugby player. I think he's actually is slightly the better 10 than Anscombe. But then I actually prefer what Anscombe brings from fullback to what Patchell brings from fullback. I think on counter attack he's very slick. But I like Liam Williams there too. So I don't know.
Even if you have Liam Williams in there, you might have one of them defending at fullback, depending on the context of what France do.
Yeah. It's all interesting. It's definitely it's a tough game to call. I think we're leaning towards Wales.
I think I'm definitely.
You're doing Wales. Your predictor thing of like who's the better rugby team. The Wales are the better rugby team, so that should be the factor. But It's Six Nations. It's week 1. It's Paris.
No, listen, that's the thing.
Could go any number of ways.
The thing about making predictions is like gun to my head. I don't know. That's the real answer.
It's true.
Other than that, we're tossing coins and making permutations. But that's the whole point of this conversation. Is we don't even know how France are going to approach this game. We don't know how Wales are going to approach this game. There's so many intangibles that making a prediction is just a bit hollow.
Seems a bit hollow.
Talking about the game is probably better for it.
Yeah, for sure. So no, it's an exciting one. We're looking forward to it. It's a great curtain raiser.
And a huge game. And the other thing, is there's so many permutations and so many plans and schemes and thoughts that are going to go into it, and then the actual result matters tremendously in the context of the championship.
Yeah. To literally every team in it, this informs a lot of what's to come. So but we'll move on to the next game, which happens at 2:15, if I'm right. 2:15 on Saturday, which is Scotland-Italy. What is traditionally in the Six Nations the wooden spoon decider, but I think it's probably grown a little bit beyond that now. Yeah, it's
in recent years it's just been the same as anybody else against Italy. Yeah, we'd like to think that Italy will take a step up this year, but
they're in Murrayfield though.
History. Yeah. Teams don't come to Murrayfield and win very often.
It seems like Ireland and England struggle to do so. I'd imagine Italy will find it quite a mountain to climb. Yeah. Even with the Scottish injuries, they will be targeting it. There's definitely, it's an interesting balance when we're highlighting club form. Treviso, highest point they've ever been, most points they've ever accrued in a single season, and it's just past Christmas. Amazing. Zebra as well have overperformed compared to themselves, obviously at a lower level. Scotland are dealing with
two teams in the knockout stage.
Two teams in the which is a level above that, and it just looks like across
2 or 3 to be fair.
Much more. But it's it should make for an interesting contest. I'm looking forward to some pretty tries. I hope. In years gone by, this has been quite a torrid affair, and both teams kind of paralysed by the fear of losing it more than actually executing their ability to win it. I kind of feel like this could be an interesting attacking kind of game.
Could be, hope so. Yeah. Could be errors either.
Scotland scrums.
Scotland have to put together, as we said, based in our overall prep of the preview of the Six Nations. They have so many different elements to bring together. They've got their Laidlaw from Clermont, and then Russell from Paris, and then the Edinburgh pack which they're going to bring in. Are they going to give Sam Skinner a go at lock, or are they going to stick with the Edinburgh locks? I'd like to see them actually go for their full team. I'd like to see them do that this week and then build onwards. I actually think it's more value. They're not in a place where they're just adding layers and adding depth. They haven't managed to produce the finished product yet.
True.
And if they want to have any chance in the World Cup
in this tournament particular,
they're going to need to have their best team. They're going to need to add strings to the bow of the best team, get the best team more comfortable together, and
more combative in terms of the forward pack and the defensive side of this game.
In all of those areas, I mean, you look at Italy have a lot of cracking players. They have this lad Traore as a prop. He's a baller. He's going to be a handful
and dimension added to that team already.
And then you've got Zani in the second row. You've got probably the back row is going to be, I would say, Bronstein and Parise. I would say an unshackled Parise, in the sense that he's not going to have all this responsibility. He was talking in his presser about being very self-critical last year, but feeling like he's playing better rugby this year. He's coming into a side that is not Team Sergio,
rudderless.
It's not Team Sergio. It's Italy's, Conor O'Shea's Italy, that played rather well last year with you added to it. So I think you might see a renewed Sergio playing, more his game, with a bit of more freedom to play. You've got Negri, who I know you're a big fan of. I'm raging that they're missing out on Pelledri, because I really like him as an option in there as well. I actually think the balance of himself, Negri, and Parise is a potential world class back. Bronstein is a unit as well, though, and I think there's a lot of heft in that pack. There's a lot of danger in their backline with Benvenuti and Campagnaro, and they can certainly put things together. They're missing little Minosi, but they have a few other more exciting young outside backs coming through. They've got classy players with man buns in the backline, and they can score. They can score tries, which we're all for. Yeah, indeed. So while their defense isn't great, and I think that's probably is why Scotland are going to win this game. I think Scotland are going to cut them open a few times. Yeah, but I definitely think this has potential to be the highest scoring game of the weekend. Yeah, in terms of a test for Scotland, you know, it's a great little hurdle for them that they do have to overcome if they want to be a top side. Is to actually face up to that pack, that Italian pack, which does have a lot of quality and does have a lot of heft.
It has stifling qualities to it for sure against even the top teams for a little while.
Face up to that pack, beat that pack. That's a huge test for them, and then defend that back line, that attack. You know, those are two stepping stones. That's why I think it's a great game for tuning up this Scottish team and getting them together, because they will be tested. It's not going to be a free ride. They're not going to have it all their own way. But it's important, I think, even like not just winning the game, it's important that they do make strides in terms of they do shut down Italy, they defend them. And
if they leak 3 tries, it'll be a confidence knocker going into a tough game against Ireland next week.
I think massively, because it'll be an indication that whatever's being worked on defensively still just isn't working
properly. No, it's true. And then it is that quandary of like, well, you can't drop Hugh Jones, he's our danger and he's our difference maker, but at the same time, when you have that axis of Finn Russell, Horn and Jones, it's like that's very frail in there, although you do get to the outside channels very effectively. But then if you're going
the balance of that is the balance. Dunbar's not even in the squad. I don't think he's injured. The balance of Russell, Horn, Jones is all wrong. Like I like Peter Horn, he's a decent player, but they need to have a 12 in there. Because otherwise you're just going wide the whole time. There's no real threat.
I would sooner see Horn covering 10. In fact,
100%.
I would rather that
than Adam Hastings. I think, in fact, that probably is what you will see. I think Christine should be capped. If not, Chris Harris from Newcastle could get another go.
Johnson, but is unfortunate to miss out as well. He's not in the squad. But they do have options there, but they still haven't found a thing that works. And you're kind of confident that you really do want Hugh Jones in the side.
And I think if you have Hugh Jones in the side and you have Finn Russell at 10, you need a defensive 12. Your Brad Barrett model in there. And I think Christine, in terms of a guy who's just come into Edinburgh amidst an injury crisis and slotted in and been error free and defensively sound,
get him in there. Make it work. I'm inclined to agree. As far as predictors, we touched on it before. I do think Scotland are going to do for them. I think it'll probably be something close to 4 or 5 tries to 2 is what I'm leaning towards. That kind of look to a game, and I think Italy will have their moments, but I think Scotland will show themselves. They have the potential,
as you say, in those areas where Scotland are weak. If they can start well, if they can score tries, if they can attack, if they can get the Murrayfield crowd worried, they can get a Scotland team that, while they are confident, they're not as fly high confident as they were on the early run. I think it's a brittle confidence. I think it's a confidence that 40 tough minutes can eke away.
Yes, very quickly.
So if Italy can get a runner going on them, there is the potential there for them. Absolutely. So
it's still the game that Italy are targeting of the whole Six Nations.
Probably really. France in Rome is the
France
other one.
in Rome is the other one. Those two tests are ones that they have historical precedent of winning. Really, so they'll be going, we can do this, and so it makes it tougher. And it's week 1, all sides are kind of gunning for it, and it becomes a question of who got the prep right. Was Ireland going to Portugal thing? Was that a good thing or was it a bad thing? Sometimes it'll certainly be painted that way in the context of the winners or the losers.
I didn't like that Ireland and England were both in Portugal that week. We should have just gone to Brazil or something. I don't know, but they copied. I know it's a while away, but I mean it's just I just didn't, for some reason I just was like, why are we both in Portugal? What's going on?
True. I don't know. They were getting
they're stalking us with their media comments as well, the English, but we'll get on to that game, I guess, in due course.
I suppose, but what, have you anything else to say on this one? I really want to see something from both of these teams in this game.
I do too.
That's what I'm hoping for.
It's a curious one, because I think no matter what you see, it's going to be positive for one side and a negative from the other, because I think what Scotland need to do is to shut Italy out, beat them up front, overcome the hurdle that is the difficult test that this team are going to present, and then beat them well. I even think the tries are in them. Like, even if they can just do that, and even if they're stuttering a bit in attack and make a few errors, there would be a foundation there to be confident that they can kick on to another level. Conversely, I think what Italy need to do is essentially prevent Scotland from doing that. Rough them up front, score some tries,
try and dominate at scrum time, try and make it messy at line out time, have an effective maul.
All of those things, and also just play your ballers into the game. You get Campagnaro on the ball, there's endless potential for an interesting contest here. And no matter what happens, I think I'm going to be pleased for one side and disappointed for another.
I think it's one of those ones where, as always, when there's two games where it feels like there's a lot on the line, and then there's a third game, I think this will be the one that has the prettiest rugby on show most of the time. That's my leaning. I think the other games will have a tendency to get tight at moments because there's a lot on the line. Whereas this one, it feels like has more potential to be flowy. So even though it's probably less consequential, it's still going to be a pretty picture, I reckon. So
unless there's a lot of errors.
There's a lot of errors, and that plays Italy into the game, which I think Italy will not be hoping for the free-flowing, high-tempo game because
I'm curious to see
they won't win it.
I'm curious to see who'll win the scrum. I mean, Traore is great, but Nell is quality. Yeah, and
Traore looks like a good option from the bench.
I think they'll start him.
I don't know.
I think they'll start him. Absolutely, yeah. I would start him.
I don't know if they may go for solidity and then break it up in the last.
I'd like to see him start, but I still think like that Edinburgh heft of Toulis and perhaps Skinner or maybe Gilchrist in there. That's going to be. I think that their scrum is going to be perhaps in years gone by it's been useless, but perhaps good enough to rival or at least get parity with some of the best scrums in the competition.
That's what they're hoping. Yeah. That's a big. Like lacking element that they've had, they haven't had, I should say, in years gone by, that does just lose you games more often than not. You're on such an uphill battle whenever your scrum's being dominated to the extent it has been in years gone by. It just puts a lot on your backs to be doing an awful lot with 30% of the ball. You're hoping for that, building on it, and swatting Italy aside is their first challenge, and I kind of back them to do it. It's like I think I do. That's where I'm leaning. Is a Scotland win comfortable enough and dangerous for any team?
I think the bigger question, rather than just predicting the result, is are they going to fix the defensive issue, or are they going to leak? Are they going to win with their attack and leak tries, and then go on to continue to leak tries against the top teams, or is there?
It's a question that won't even be answered after this week. Other than if they leak a load of tries, then it's obviously like big problem. But even if they manage to shut Italy out, it'll still be like, I think that was only Italy. Yeah. So they will be like targeting, keeping the tries against or the scores against, meters against even at a minimum. Yeah. Because even when it hasn't led to tries, there's just been too many clean line breaks or just bustling contacts won, where there's like so many post contact meters that they give up in that centre area as well.
There's also just a lot of plays that just there's no contact. It's just a hard inside line
and a hole
and just a huge gap in between the two centres.
They're kind of two separate issues in the same area, whereby like you're not getting in the right position to defend the channel, and then even when you are, you're not physical enough to defend the channel.
As much as I'd like to see Dean in, like the responsibility on those shoulders. I mean, this is a guy who wasn't starting for Edinburgh, and now he may have to come in, start at 12, and lead a backline defence and make all your tackles and be perfect in the Six Nations against some of the top test sides in the world.
It's tough, but that's what he's in it for. He's in it to be in that World Cup squad, and so that's what the challenge is. So get him in there sooner than later, and challenge him to do it.
They may go for someone like Chris Harris either. I would be disappointed to see them go for Peter Horn. Even this week, even if it's just like, it's an Italy thing, we're going to throw the ball around. I mean, no, you have to fix your problems now.
It's true. It's a good point. It'll be interesting to see what the selection is then on that, and then obviously roll into the performance and see how it works. But I still maintain it's not like there won't be an definitive answer based off this game on that particular question, but that is their target. Should be plugging those holes.
I don't think there's going to be a definitive answer, but I just look for improvement. That's what you want to see.
It's just we've seen steady signs of in both of these teams and their club compatriots
in those specific areas. Improvement in defence, improvement in the pack, improvement in the scrum. That's the key. That's what going into a World Cup cycle as well. That's huge.
True. And I suppose we'll pivot on, because that's actually a good little segue into the next one, Ireland England. A massive game, and we were talking about briefly in our England kind of preamble about where they stand going into this Six Nations. About they have a lot of issues and a repeated near like an epidemic of failure to recognize and fix those problems. It takes them far too long to learn. And what were their learnings from last year? I do wonder. And what the selection's going to be?
It was just to hear them. I'm like, you would hope that the coaches just are behind closed doors, sort of introspective, intelligent, curious people, and that it's all an act, because everything that they present to the public suggests that they are just like utterly just this typical gruff, ignorant attitude that they seem to have towards everything. And it beyond annoys me at this stage looking at them. It's like talking about Brexit.
We're not
listening to, it's like they're just banging their heads together. I mean, the Japan game last year, they put in a good shift after a really tough run of form. They put in a good shift against the All Blacks. They didn't permanently solve any of their defensive issues.
They didn't even win the game.
In fact, one of their defensive issues was exposed in the centre for all of their, adding a bit of line speed to proceedings. And then straight away for the Japan game, they were out talking all kinds of smack. We're going to hammer them. Eddie Jones made some, offensive comments, and then
Kyle Sinclair riled you up.
It made after making an atrocious error in the All Blacks game that arguably cost them the match.
Yes.
Went on to talk some smack about Japan.
And then came off the bench against Japan.
Yeah.
Repeated that error. Yeah. In that same game.
And they're this extremely respectful nation that are coming as a guest, and you just you want to ruffle their feathers and talk smack about them. It just really rubbed me the wrong way. And then of course Japan came out and outplayed them for 40 minutes and scared them.
Beautiful viewing. It was one of my favourite parts of the whole rugby calendar last year.
They don't seem to learn their lessons. I mean, just this week, John Mitchell, who was the Bulls coach last year, who's again a new guy on camp, I just don't know where they find the attitude. Is out, Ireland are here to bore the shit out of us, is what they were going to say in attack. I mean, just they know one note in terms of the communication, and it's disrespect. You hear them talking about last year's dip in form, and they speak in we had a dip in form, we've got it back. And there doesn't seem to be any introspection beyond that. They're getting all kinds of things wrong selection wise. They have no idea what they're doing with their midfield. Eddie Jones isn't there talking about Noel as a back rower. I like to think that's just spoof and talk, but it doesn't seem like he knows what a back rower even does. He certainly isn't curious enough to think about it. And at the breakdown, they're one of the worst teams in Europe. Certainly the worst team of the home nations, of the home nations,
of the Lions nations, of the ones that count themselves among the best in the world. They're the worst at that particular game.
Worst at the breakdown. Don't know what they're doing with the centres. Can attack a bit, but defensively have all kinds of issues. Sometimes they have great line speed, and sometimes they don't. They never really threaten over the ball.
The only way they threaten is by being, and it happens occasionally in Twickenham, that physical that they bludgeon you.
Or Maro Itoje makes some plays on the ball. He's great at he just heads up making a play on the ball.
True. Yeah.
But sort of obvious things like bringing Brad Barrett in to shore up the defence of the centre hasn't been done. Alex Good, the form fullback in the country, just not called up.
True.
All of this potential, and they just seem to be continuing.
The other factor is of all their club teams and the game being in such a horrid state with the Premiership right now. Sarries are the one shining light, beacon of hope, one would think, in that, and yet not enough Sarries in there. There's going to be a dominance of Sarries in it, but it's like you should be nearly picking the Sarries team plus extras.
I think that's exactly what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Granted, I think Wigglesworth has struggled a bit for form. I think
I think Young's in there. I like to see Dan
Robson in there.
Robson maybe, he's been actually had a great season.
He's going to be on the bench. I wouldn't hate to see him start. He's got a bit of life to him. They have narrowed their down. That's their team down. That's the news we have today. They've narrowed their team down to 25. So we more or less know their squad.
Sure. Yeah.
Selecting off a few different players. The curiosity is whether they go for Ford Farrell, which for me would be crazy. I mean, it's Farrell at 10.
Farrell is, yes, as we highlighted before at the start of the podcast, Farrell is one of the best 10s in the world. George Ford is not one of the best 10s in the world. And Farrell should be at 10 for them if they want to be one of the best teams in the world. It seems to make more sense than, or it doesn't need to be made more complicated than that. And especially but to broaden on it, England as a tradition, they're not Australian rugby. They're not two playmakers. They're not all that way. Like they want to be dominating physically. That involves having a 12 that's very physical, that's going to lead your defensive line, that's going to take some of that responsibility off Owen Farrell. You don't want Owen Farrell not in the primary decision making role and in one of the primary physical roles on the pitch in terms of defence. That seems crazy to me. He's going to get... You want to protect him like Ireland do Johnny Sexton. Keep him out of the context as much as possible.
It's a mismatch for him. And in fact, the amount of trouble he's been in for the tackling and such, you don't need him throwing his body around either. You don't need
people are going like he's a bad defender. I actually think he's an exceptional defender for a 10.
Yeah.
He's just not a 12.
I think he's a solid defender even at 12. I don't think that's his main problem. But he does have his issue with the arms, but he's also just throws his body at trying to he's
trying to make plays on guys who are bigger than him.
Like
much bigger. Of course he's flinging.
He made that silly mistake in the South Africa game that didn't get punished, but what got missed a couple of minutes before was that he actually won that test by stripping the ball in a contact. He's a quality defender and a quality player. And in England,
the defensive play made on Mackenzie in the All Black game was great as well, batting the ball free.
As much as it was a cracking play. As much as we deride. I just sort of went off my frustrations with the coaching ticket and the attitudes that they take.
Yes,
the coaching ticket and Kyle Sinclair.
In particular, though, he and you pointed out the week of, and then it was like he came off again against Japan, and it was only Japan, and he dropped the ball again. It didn't matter because they were already game over, but it's like you're only on for 10 minutes. Stop dropping that ball.
I think he's their new starting tight head.
Yeah,
because I think they're going to have Harry Williams on the bench and Kyle Sinclair in.
I really like Harry Williams as a player, to be honest.
Kyle Sinclair is talented to the gills, and I'm glad I haven't yet heard any media comments from him this week, because that means he might put in a good shift. Because he's got oodles of potential. They just need to mature, and in honesty, rather than blaming him, it's a cultural thing that comes from the top.
It's
that
more symptomatic rather than
For example, when Lancaster was in charge, they did conduct themselves more honourably, and while they got a lot wrong in the World Cup, I maintain that not talking smack wasn't one of the things they got wrong.
In fact, that was one of the areas they were excelling in terms of their great history of making a show of themselves at these kinds of international events where the team does something disrespectful, or some of the media thing goes around the world, and it's like, you shouldn't be doing that. You really don't need to be doing that.
I don't even think it's a national thing. I think it's coming from up top, in terms of just their attitude. But all of that notwithstanding, what they do have is a team full of cracking rugby players.
And they have a country full of cracking rugby players.
Absolutely the potential to beat Ireland. They just have to be smart about it.
If
you want to look at how to beat Ireland again, this is a mouth-watering clash in Dublin. There's got this has got the potential to be the game of the championship. It could set England's season to mad heights. I don't think what Eddie Jones has been hinting he'll do is go smashy smash. Like, we have to be super physical. We have to break them in the contact. I don't think player for player, outside of maybe Maro Toji and a couple of others, I don't think they match up that well against the Irish pack. I don't necessarily like that. What I do like is holding the ball. I think that would be so key for them if they could focus a huge amount of their energy on the offensive breakdown, not making errors, and do to Ireland what Ireland do to other teams in terms of earlier in the game, don't kick it. Even if you're not making that much progress, just hold the ball, make Ireland make the tackles, run clever lines at them, let Farrell be Sexton and control the plays, make all the reads, run some shapes within that context, but have like a premium placed on getting men to the breakdown, holding the ball, and then be relentlessly patient with it. And then within that context, you can get Billy Funapolo rolling. You can win a few contacts. But I think that's going to be a key indicator of it. Would first of all get the crowd out of the game. And just give Ireland a picture to a game that they're not used to. Which is not having that much ball, having to defend quite a bit. I think that would be a massive start in terms of defensively. If they can just if they can front up in terms of making their tackles when Ireland are in their own half, it just try and prevent in any context Ireland having the ball in your half, because you're not breakdown experts, and you're not going to get it off them. So when they're in their own half, you've got to front up. You've got to not let them exit. Force them to exit with the boot. Deal with the kick, and then hold on to the ball.
Do not be sloppy in terms of execution at breakdowns, reckless clear outs, silly penalties that are very much a problem for this English side, particularly away from home when the game gets physical. Just limbs get a bit more flaily, the picture gets a little bit more ugly. Some in a set like you're describing of 20 plus phases, There's going to be one or two cleanouts that are just really, really a bit pushing it, and then sometimes too far, where it's just like, you've someone like Sinclair or Vunipola or something coming in, barreling in from the side and going straight off their feet, and it's just like, no, penalty the other way, territory, ball lost. And it's like those kinds of things will be killers for them if you see some of that. I suspect you probably will. That's been what I've seen a lot from this England team, is like they do match you physically, they actually do pose some problems, but then they cause themselves all kinds of problems
if they can manage their discipline, because you're all thinking about ways to prevent Ireland from having the ball in your half, and like penalties are they're absolute
penalties are, particularly this Ireland team, no team manages to utilise penalties in the midfield.
The All Blacks.
It
killed the All Blacks in Dublin. The penalty count is what did them. They just, every time they tried to get a little something going, they made a sloppy mistake, they got penalised for it. Ireland went up the pitch and held on to the ball for the next 15 minutes, ending in a score. And that kind of thing. And Ireland will do the same to England. They will be ruthless.
They'll probably score a bit more as well.
England need to when they get the ball, they need to be relentlessly disciplined in holding on to it. They need their clean out guys going 90. They need to tire Ireland out. And defending Ireland is the whole ball game. You have to solve whatever's been going on at 12, in the sense that get someone in there who's leading the line, who's not going to be frail. If Ireland go ahead and select whoever it's going to be, Henshaw or Aki or Ringrose coming back in that channel, you've got to prioritise tackling that area. And then Ireland will, if you stop them for a few phases in their own half, go to the kicking game. Which does present its own difficulty. Ireland are great. I mean, beating Ireland is going to be no picnic, but if you can deal with the kicking game, resource that area well, and win the ball and then hold the ball, I think that's your best chance of beating them. It's all about the offensive breakdown, moving the ball,
which is something that traditionally this England team have placed very little stock on, and have not, their entire shape hasn't been about that, so that would be an unprecedented change. To see them try and keep the ball for that long in that way, as opposed to trying to get Ford and Farrell or both into the game by spinning it wider, and like ultimately their attacking sets don't last as long, don't typically.
And so they do have tries in them. I just feel like the tries could come at more key moments and could be more telling factors if it's born of a lot of pressure, if it's born of driving Ireland to the point of frustration where maybe you win a penalty off them, letting Farrell make a load of decisions, playing a lot off 10, running those Saracen screens, causing Ireland defence a lot of problems, but not going flash it wide and then getting isolated out in the wing,
or pushing
it up the middle, or picked off.
Jacob Stockdale and his habit for grabbing tries out of nowhere.
Keep the ball contained, place a premium on holding possession, and then when the tries do come, they're going to mean a lot more. Whereas otherwise, if England do as England do, they do have a few tries in them. If they put together, a 15-minute set of good rugby and get outside Ireland and expose a couple of weaknesses, Ireland are going to play their way back into the game. You are, if you play that game, going to make a sloppy mistake or get isolated. Ireland will get on the ball, and then Ireland will impose themselves on the game. And you'll find, even if it's 7-7, England have scored a try, Ireland have scored a try, the England are going to be much more emotionally and physically drained from that experience of 7-7, because England's try just came like a flash, where Ireland's was bruised and thumped into them, and that is the worst case scenario. There's nothing that kills a team like Ireland having the ball in their 22 for 15 minutes before scoring a try. It's absolutely draining, and that's the worst case scenario for England. And I think the remedy to it was sort of exposed a couple of times against Leinster. When you see teams do it, is they can just hold on to the ball. It frustrates. It's not where Ireland want to be. It's true. That's where you have to put them.
And as much as Ireland's defensive system has improved, they're more aggressive, which is more in keeping with their kind of, I feel, our kind of character as a nation. Rather than being reverse drift, standoffish, we want to be proactively making hits, reads and then hits, which we're doing more of. It's still not ideal to be doing that for great periods. They want to be holding close to 60% of the possession against any team, and that's where all their plans lie. So stifling that seems like a good recipe for success, which should be a focus for them. Whether it will be or not, who knows? Maybe they'll have been practicing catching kicks all week and they really want to make a game of that. I don't know.
No, listen, it's defensively that's important. I mean, I think they might go for Mike Brown, and I don't necessarily hate the call just because he's good at defense.
Stacks up well against Rob Kearney. He's not the right call.
I think the right call, broadly speaking, is Alex Good, and I would actually back Alex Good to deal with Ireland's kicking game, but that's another matter. Of the squad that they have, he's probably a better option than anyone else. Maybe Chris Ashton, but I think
an option.
I think Ashton is going to be on one wing, and I think Johnny May is going to be on the other.
I don't think he's as effective on one wing as he is.
He still scores tries.
He still does, that's his want, but the team doesn't become quick enough, if I was dynamic enough in the wide channels.
If I was Ireland, to counter your point, if I was Ireland and I saw Ashton playing fullback,
I'd be kicking at him.
Yeah,
all day.
Contestables.
Yeah,
not fun ones he gets to run back at us. No. Using Murray's and Sexton's pinpoint boot to bomb it up in the air at him, and then sending people down his throat.
It's true.
Rough him up. I don't hate him on the wing, but I think it'll come at the expense of Daly. I think they'll go for Ashton on one wing and May on another, and Brown at fullback at the expense of Daly. And I think perhaps Noel on the bench as well.
Yeah, I do like Noel. Is definitely good value in there as a mix it up kind of guy who comes in and works very hard. So, but there's danger, there's potential in that team winning. As far as winning conditions, that's the one that I see, and I see so many roadblocks to that. Primarily discipline. I haven't seen enough from them to think that they won't mess it up by giving away silly penalties in the midfield.
And I also think
being less disciplined than this Ireland team, which is it's a tough challenge for any team, because discipline wise, I think this Ireland team are probably the best team in the world as far as just keeping their cool and not giving away those silly penalties. Even the All Blacks tend to have a few technical penalties in them that are sloppy at times, whereas Ireland tend not to.
Occasionally you see Mahoney or Stander getting the wrong end of a few calls. But Ireland for the most part are quite disciplined. I also think they're ball carrying pack. Can you, like when you talk about defending Ireland being a priority, I mean, if they can get James Ryan just winning collisions and going forward, or Ty Furlong,
puts a bit more panic in you, and then suddenly a bit more recklessness in the contact.
There's a lot of brilliant ball carrying going on in the Ireland pack at the moment, and I think a great matchup against Ireland is a team that chops those guys down and jackals like Wales. That's a great matchup. I just don't know if that's England's game at all, and especially without Underhill, it's just going to be forcing it to try and do that. So make the tackles, force Ireland to kick and hold the ball. I think that's their best chance from Ireland's perspective.
It's a reassuring thought, because as far I can see many more ways that Ireland can win this game than I can envisage for England. Because I do think just the crowd will be a factor. I think we will have a lower penalty count than them. I think we will probably edge them territory-wise.
I'd like to see us test that 12 channel just to see if they fixed it.
I would love that. And that's where there's an argument for going straight up Bundy Aki.
I was going to say, I wouldn't hate the call this week, just because I think he's got a good jink on him. He's probably a better man than Henshaw for just that straight beat a man, run a line. And that just like the profit that Delindy got against that backline, and then Crotty the next week,
and then the Japanese lad, whoever his name was, and it was just like there's definitely purchase in there. Send a big Bundy Aki down at them.
Off the top of a line out and that's like so many Ireland set plays come from that. You'd like to think they've had the sense to fill the space with a flanker, or at least disguise it somewhat. But maybe not. It's
certainly an area that Sexton should be probing from minute one, as far as like, is that still a problem for you? Oh, it is. Oh, no way. Well then, Bundy have the ball. And I think Ringrose has potential for carving them up in that area as well, just by being difficult.
I think they'll try and go about, like, I think in terms of John Mitchell's rude complaint about boring them, I think he's bang on the money in the sense that Ireland are going to try and do a similar thing to the second test against Australia, just holding that ball, picking their moments of when they want to strike, putting all kinds of creative shapes within it that constantly test the defence but never quite breaking through. But it's just going to be, the recipe is just going to be force them to make tackles, exit with the boot, which we said one of the ways England need to do it, force Ireland to kick and then deal with the kicks. Make Murray and Sexton kick extremely well. If they can get Stockdale or Rob Kearney running down a perfectly timed box kick against them, there's the potential for all kinds of carnage, and that's one of the ways. If that exit can be effective, I think that's game right there. If Ireland can get the kicking game going, start winning those kicks up in the air, and then getting a bit of quick ball and going and holding the ball, and it's just like when you're playing a team like Ireland that hold on to the ball for so long, and then you force them to kick, and then they win the kick. Yeah, it's just energy, mentally sapping, like and draining, and knowing that you have to run back and then defend again. Yeah, that's what Ireland do to teams, and that's going to be key for them, as always with Ireland. The exit with the contestable kick as an exit from their own territory, because they don't actually. They occasionally see them get stalled in the opposition half. They've
implemented a mix it up philosophy where if they go a few sets or a few phases through a set that isn't working, they try and drop a bomb on the 22 line.
They tend to do that early in the game, but it's when they feel like they're making a team make a lot of tackles and the team aren't comfortable with it, they will just hold on to the ball for 40 phases.
Well, that's prioritising territory over possession. It kind of ebbs and flows throughout the game sometimes, but it's nice that they mix it up. Yeah, because like as far as an attack, it has been a bit too stagnant for a little bit. It's never really been in the forte of Schmidt's Ireland. It has been incision and that kind of play. So the way they built around that and the little variations and innovations around that, and that, like you're describing, that psychological element to just playing that game. Yeah, like sure, it's very daunting as a physical challenge, which concerns me because I'm trying to back a squad to put a run of 6, however many games, and it would take 7 games to win a World Cup, isn't it? Yeah. So that's 7 games in a row with very little respite and rest. So it's like as a game plan, it's very attritional. But the only side of it is it's more in the context of the 80 minutes. It's tougher for the other team than it is for you if you're on point and getting it right. So it's I think we actually match up really badly for England. To be honest, I'm obviously nervous. It's week 1 of the Six Nations. Anything could happen. The boys could be caught cold. There could be like just a lack of cohesion.
Game of rugby is
considering the performance they put in. Like last year's Six Nations was tremendous, but the performance they put in Paris was very frustrating up until that magical drop goal moment, because it felt like we were all over them, completely dominant in every aspect of the game, apart from an inability to score the tries that can make the scores come from it. And then that kind of remedied itself as the tournament went on. Well, but had that drop goal not gone over, that would have still been a huge like question mark over the side. And I still think it kind of is. On week 1 they need to be gelling.
It lingers a little bit, and they may not gel. I just think that that French defence was probably the best defence that we came up against.
Maybe that's true too.
I definitely think that's a factor, and I don't know if England's is that good. I think England winning will require them to remedy some of their mistakes. I mean, it's theoretical that the same England that has been playing for the last couple of years could streak together as they did against South Africa in that opening test, just put together 20 minutes of scintillating form, catch Ireland's sloppy defending perhaps, maybe catch Earls or Stockdale biting in and get outside them, and then score a couple of tries. And then if they do that, I probably wouldn't back Ireland's ability to do what South Africa did and just come back at them with sweeping Faf de Klerk attacking plays. Maybe Ireland would lose that kind of a game, but I think that's not a likely scenario, and I think that's probably the only scenario that the England that I have been looking at could do them. But I'd like to see them remedy some of their errors, fix their defence, play a smarter game, back Farrell at 10 to outthink and to make loads of plays on offence, and to make all the reads and all the decisions, and play them out of the game. And I think the best way for England to do it is play them at their own game, hold the ball on them, make them make the tackles, clean out. Watch O'Mahony like a hawk and clean him out. Be disciplined.
And that red-capped fiend.
Josh
Van der Fleer.
So it makes for interesting viewing. But I certainly I don't think I'm suggesting it's obviously a tough ask going to Dublin and winning. But what I'm describing, the performance from England I'm describing, is in them to do. Yeah. Or certainly it's in the country anyway. Maybe you need Brad Barrett to shore up that 12 defence. It remains to be seen. Yeah. But
I don't know if it will be seen. In fact, I suspect it won't ever come to pass. We're going to keep calling for it here.
No, I just mean it remains to be seen whether they can fix it without him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Who's going to be the one to step up? I don't know.
Or are they going to change their system such that there isn't a gaping defensive weakness in the middle of the park that can be run through? It was Ben Teo last time. I mean, Ben Teo's no slouch in the tackle, but there was just some issues with their shape.
Yeah, there's a big distinction with difference between defending and tackling.
Yeah,
like defending is not tackling, and tackling is not defending. So you can point to a highlight of Ben Teo. Well, okay, but I'm like, you can point to a great highlight reel footage of Ben Teo absolutely smashing folks, which he doubtless has. He's done that in Leinster colours as well, and is like never disputing the fact that the boy is physical in the hit. Yeah. But I'm questioning his ability to lead that defensive line cogently and have it link.
I don't even know that that was what he was asked to do, though. I think it might have been a systems error, and I'd like to see it fixed. And yeah, we'll find out. I guess it's gonna be a very interesting game. With any luck, we'll see a smarter and better, brilliant England team. We'll see Ireland hit their A game, and we're going to get one hell of a test match, because England at their best, despite all the critique and everything else, England at their best are a hell of a thing to be dealing with. Indeed. It's a formidable task for any team.
Exactly right.
As the All Blacks found out last November, it was just a bit of line speed, a bit of aggression, and a quality number 7, which I'm afraid they don't have at the moment.
Yes.
That really did frighten teams. Just matchup wise, I think in terms of predictions, I'm back Ireland.
I'm back in Ireland this week as well. Yeah. For on all that talk we just had, and also historical precedent, and also home advantage. All of that stuff plays a part, and I think Ireland are just the superior team at the moment. But like you're saying, that what you're hoping is for a few of those issues in the England camp to be addressed. You'd hope, like, yes, we will go to the short carry early on. You'd kind of like to see it not get that much purchase, to have them snuff out that, to have us have to think around that, and maybe the spaces elsewhere, like just a few different, like, just to encourage you by thinking that they're at least addressing these problems. They're recognizing them same as us, watching all their games, their body of work as a team, and what that means, and where the weaknesses are, where what they're doing well is, and kind of fix some of that. And it's like, I'm not all that encouraged by the selection just yet, but based off just the selection of the players, not all that encouraged that much is going to change. And I think Ireland,
it's based on the chat from the coaches. They just there's no hint of introspection. So either they're very good actors, or they're just not looking at themselves and noticing the weaknesses.
Yeah. Which is a problem, and it will be found out in Dublin if that's the case.
If that's the case, yeah. With any luck, they're just playing the media for a fool, saying controversial things for the crack, and are actually doing fundamental good coaching in the background. But I don't know.
That is the hope, and I'm just so unconvinced because I don't know. But
I think that's us.
We're going to wrap it up.
Our Six Nations special. That's ORP 39. It's very excited. I mean, listen, it's Six Nations time, baby.
Six Nations fever.
What else would you be doing? In the winter time, the snow has started to fall. The Six Nations is coming.
This is it. Yeah. Well, it's getting colder around here in this neck of the woods. Has been across to Channel as well. It seems. So we need some class rugby, some consequential international rugby to warm the bones.
Absolutely,
that's exactly what we're looking forward to. So, and of course, come on Ireland.
Come on Ireland,
absolutely.
And listen, this was 39, and we'll see you next week at 40.
Yeah, big one. See you,
folks. Bye.
You're up.
Yeah. Whew. Here we go.
Big ball. No excuses this time.
Yeah. Doesn't even going to throw it now, but I do like this ball.
Oh, he's an overthrow. And I have to use the little ball. I hit it and it just didn't go down. That's a shitty ball. No.
Good shot though.